Thank you everyone for joining us on this Constitution Day. I think the best day in our country's history, among other really great days we can celebrate. I'm Dr. Donna Phillips. I am the proud president of the Center for Civic Education, one of the three co-sponsoring organizations for the American Civic Education Teacher Award, ACETA for short, to be short and cute. I'm joined here today, I see, by one of my fellow inaugural ACETA winners, Chris Kavanaugh. Once an ACETA winner, always an ACETA winner. And so by way of welcome to our three 2024 ACETA winners, you are part of a unique and awesome family, and we're never going to let you go. So with that, I will turn it over to Emily, who's going to introduce our panel. I won't bury the lead. It's going to be moderated by another amazing ACETA winner, and with thanks to the team here at the center, including Kelly Reichert and Emily Voss, as well as our partner organizations with Liz at Indiana University Center for Representative Government, and our third partner, the National Education Association. We're really excited that every year we get to celebrate three amazing civic educators, and I can't wait to hear what you have to share with us tonight.
Donna,
Thanks.
you're making me feel old because I'm the parent of a student of the first ACETA winner, Chris Kavanaugh. So
Oh,
that really
wow.
makes me feel dated. My daughter is a proud Look at the People alum with Chris Kavanaugh at Plainfield, Indiana, before he relocated to the real West, not the old West, an old Northwest.
We're all never far from one another, no matter what age or part of the country we're in. So
All right. Well, I think I'll take it from here. So thank you so much, Donna, for kicking us off. My name's Emily Voss. I am the Senior Manager of National Programs and Professional Learning here at the Center for Civic Education. And our program tonight is part of a series called 60-Minute Civics. These are sessions that are panel discussions that are meant to serve as a platform for exploring current civic topics and offering educational insights. And so this particular panel will do a little bit of both. So it's my pleasure to introduce tonight's moderator, Dr. Shelina Warren. She is an Arkansas native, an Army veteran, and social studies teacher and leader in her 9th year at Dunbar High School in Washington, D.C., which is her 22nd year in education. She teaches 10th to 12th grade students in constitutional law, law and justice advocacy, peer mediation, and human rights and social action. Shelina is also the director of the Eleanor Holmes Norton Law and Public Policy Academy, whose mission is to nurture students to use their voices to affect change. Before moving to DC, Ms. Warren taught 9th grade civics and economics for 10 years and spent 3 years teaching gifted and talented K-6 students in Arkansas. And as Donna mentioned, she has won numerous awards in the past, including in 2022, the American Civics Education Teacher Award. So I will hand things over to Dr. Shelina Warren to bring up our discussion with this year's winners.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here. I'm so excited to moderate this panel of awesome educators. So 237 years ago, the delegates to the Constitutional Convention met and signed our Constitution into this nation's history. Since then, we have only added 27 amendments, with Amendment 27, Congressional Compensation, being ratified in May of 1992. As educators, specifically civics educators, we must ensure America's youth know and understand the rights included in the Constitution. So I'm honored to be here tonight with you to talk with these three award-winning educators, specifically on this particular night, which happens to be Constitution Day. So again, happy Constitution Day to everyone, and let's get started. So to begin, could each of you briefly introduce yourself and share your background in civics education and what inspired you to become a civics teacher? And let's start with Christian, and then Lauren, and then Lynn.
Hi, everyone. My name is Pensiero. I am a fifth grade teacher in Howard County, Maryland. I teach at Veterans Elementary School. I've been teaching fifth grade for 14 years, and I've been in charge of running my school's simulated congressional hearings. And I've also been a part of the Howard County cadre for running schools in congressional hearings in other schools as well. I've been curriculum writer for social studies for many years. And for the past 2 years, I've been working with the Center for Civics Education as a mentor teacher, helping to teach other teachers on implementing the We the People program that Howard County uses in their schools as well. And I was thinking really hard about this question about what inspired me to be a civics teacher. And I kind of went back to high school originally. My favorite class in high school was my AP US history class. And I had, that's what you teach. I had intentions to go to law school, and I started out my college career in law classes, and I started working at an aftercare program and fell in love with working with students. So I decided to change majors and become an elementary school teacher. And I still held on to that law passion. And I think I got the perfect spot of being a fifth grade teacher, because we do get to teach about the Constitution. And I was actually teaching about the preamble today, which happened to coincide perfectly with Constitution Day. But I think overall, my inspiration came from my high school teachers. So they really do make such a big difference in inspiring us. And probably a little bit of my dad, because he always let me healthily debate him on any political topic. And I think that has also transferred into my teaching as well. Thank you for having me tonight.
I'm Lauren Hallgring. I teach at Neptune Middle School here in Neptune, New Jersey. This is my 15th year with the district. This is my third year in 8th grade. I started as a 6th grade teacher. My first year, we just had an American history class, and then I was part of curriculum writing, and we came up with a civics course for 6th graders, and ran that for years. And then 3 years ago, I guess almost 4 years ago, the state mandated that all students in New Jersey complete a civics course. It has to be at least a semester long, could be an entire year. So our district sat down and we said we're going to do it for an entire year, because we already had the foundations, but we were going to move it from 6th grade to 8th grade. So I moved along with it, helped to write it. And part of the program is that the students do a civics and action piece. So we spend the year learning the foundations, and then they take what they've learned and apply it in action. One example that they've led is a beach cleanup. We get them down, we live right on the shore here, so we get them down to the beach, they organize, they do the cleanup, but they're tracking what they're picking up. We come back, we analyze what they've found. Couple years ago, they found that there was a lot of plastic water bottles. So they then started brainstorming, well, what can we do about this? And they came up with pitches for the town to go to the town council and get more water fountains on our beachfront. Some of them came up with pitches to reach out to water bottle companies, major companies, and get them to change the plastics. So really just, you could see like they got it. They're taking what we had talked about and how can you enact change in your community. So something so small seeming as going to the beach and picking up garbage led to these really big ideas that they can take with them. So that's been really interesting to see. I'm really lucky that we have a district who's so into it. So I get to work with a lot of outside agencies like the League of Women Voters and have them come in. So it's just been a really cool journey to be part of. I've always wanted to be a teacher. I always wanted to do history, but civics, I just really, after taking courses in college and working with it, I always just found myself not wanting to go past the Constitution in our history. So once we get into it, breaking it down, I actually picked up a minor in political science when I was in college because I was like, I really like this. This is where I want to be. So that's my journey.
My name is Lem Wheelis. I teach at A.J. Diamond High School in Anchorage, Alaska. So good afternoon from Alaska, because it's only 3 o'clock here, and my school day actually is about to end in about 3 minutes here, but I had to pass my last class of the day off to someone else midway through. But nonetheless, I teach at my alma mater. I graduated from Diamond High and have taught here for 20 years. In fact, in the very classroom that I'm speaking from, it's been my classroom the entire time. One of the things that really inspired me to become a teacher was my experience as a high school student here. And particularly, I was involved with a lot of student leadership programs, including student government. And my student government advisor was also my honors U.S. history teacher. And I learned two very big things from Mr. Brown. Give him a quick shout out there. One was a love of the Constitution and really the foundation of our government. I just got really interested in understanding our founding documents, really getting to dig in. Just having the Constitution in front of me as a 10th grader to be able to read it and see it for myself and not just, oh, it's the Constitution, it's out there, but that I actually got to explore that and have some assistance and understanding. It really got me excited about it. But also being a leader in my school and in my community as a young person really was impactful. I actually was intending to be a civil engineer until I was a senior in high school. Math was always my strongest subject. And I started to come to the conclusion that really I wanted to have a more daily impact in people's lives. And I always appreciate the engineers who keep the ceiling up. You know, I've been through a major 7.2 earthquake in this building, in fact, in 2018. And I was very thankful for the engineers that day that the ceiling tiles may have fallen, but the building stayed up, right? That was important. But I wanted a daily impact on people's lives, and being a high school teacher seemed like an exciting thing to do. And so I abandoned engineering and math, my first love, and really pursued my interest in the Constitution and in our government. Got a degree in political science, and then a master's in teaching. And as quickly as I could, I came back to the school that is my home and community. And my own children have gone to this high school now. I have one who graduated a year ago and another who's a junior and is taking my AP US history class this year. So it's exciting. And there's the bell. That must mean I'm done. It's the end of the school day. So I'll turn it back over to Shelina.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So I'm taking notes as we're talking since I'm the moderator, and we all, great minds think alike, I guess. Christian, you said your high school U.S. government course inspired you. I had, back in the day, they had AP U.S. legal systems. I loved that class. Lauren, you said you always wanted to be a teacher. From the age of 3, I wanted to be a teacher. I already knew that. And then Lynn, experience as a high school student. Yes, in the classroom, looking at the teachers, what they're doing, knowing what not to do and what to do. That is the mark of a great teacher. So we're going to pivot a little bit. Thank you all for sharing. We recognize you tonight for winning the 2024 American Civic Education Teacher Award, or ACETA. So for those who may not know, can you explain the ACETA Award and what it means to receive this recognition as a civics teacher? And we will start with Lauren, and then Lim, and then Christian for this question.
Okay, so I've been thinking about this question all day, and it's so funny that you threw it to me first. It's just reflecting on this whole process to have an award that exists, right? To acknowledge the work that's being done in civic education is awesome. And I don't think there's anybody on this meet right now who does what we do for the awards. But what I really liked about this process was the fact that we had to write an essay, right? We had to take the time to be reflective. And for me, heading into my 15th year, I was kind of feeling that teacher burnout. And I needed that to sit down and reflect, like, well, where have we been as a department? Where have I been as a teacher? What have we brought to the, program that we're offering to the students? And it was a pretty neat experience to kind of just sit back and put it all together in one place. So I think it is so important that these opportunities do exist, because civics is such an important foundation. And I don't know if it's always celebrated or encouraged or embraced as much as it should be. And I believe you said earlier, like, the students don't know the rights that they have, and it's our job to tell them. And it's also our job to make sure that they are able to challenge when those rights aren't being, when they're being violated or they don't exist. So again, having ACETA here to do this, to recognize, who's teaching about the Constitution and Congress and public policy and all the aspects of it, I think is a really awesome thing to have available to us.
Well, I'll start my response to that by taking a moment and thanking the sponsoring organizations. the Center for Representative Government at Indiana University, Center for Civic Ed, and the National Education Association. It was actually my NEA affiliate state president, who is a colleague and was a civic educator himself before stepping into that role, who reached out to me last spring and said, "Hey, I think you should apply for this. This, sounds like a good opportunity." And I just really, appreciate the opportunity to do what we're doing right now, to share about civic education with colleagues, with the public. I had the opportunity to be interviewed for a story that was just published on Chalkbeat yesterday, and to be able to speak about teaching about civics, to teaching about government, especially at this time, with the election coming up, with all of the struggles in our political system, it's a great time to be educating young people about what it means to be active in their democracy. And so I'm just thankful for the opportunity to do that in my classroom, but also the opportunity to elevate the voice of civic education across our nation and really help people understand what we do every day, and how it makes a difference in our students' lives.
Yeah, I feel like you guys said it perfectly. It's just such an honor for us to be in this position. And same, I think, kind of what both of you said, like just thinking through when I'm applying for this, what civics things I had already done. And I was recommended by someone I really look up to apply for this award. And I had to sit down and kind of think like what I had done to get recognized in this position. And it really made me stop and think and appreciate all of the civics effort that I put into my classroom, as well as how important it is. And I recognize that some teachers aren't always pursuing social studies, at least at the elementary school level. It seems to be one of those subjects that they're like, no, we can kind of push this one to the side. And I've never felt like that. I've always felt like this is actually, I don't want to say the most important, but it is super important, because if you don't understand how your rights work and how the country works, then everything else isn't going to function the way it needs to. So we need students who are able to engage in the democracy and how the country is run in order to make that positive change. So I'm just really honored to have this opportunity to receive this award and just keep growing as an educator. And I think this is just propelling me forward and wanting to do even more. So receiving this has just inspired me to see what's next and how else can I make a difference going forward. So thank you again for the opportunity.
Wonderful. So you were encouraged to apply or recommended to apply. This was a reflective process for you. And then looking at the efforts that you put into your classroom, which is perfect for my next question, where we talk about your achievements, because we have so much to learn from you all. How do you engage your students in civic education in your classroom? And we will start with Lynn, Christian, and then
One of the most important things to me, whether it's in my government classes or my history classes, is for my students to recognize that the people we're talking about are people, right? When we talk about George Washington, I mean, you talk about somebody who, has this hero persona in the way we tell the stories, but also is a human being with flaws and struggles and all of those sorts of things. And so, I tried to bring that lesson home with my history students. With my government students, I try and bring people to them. I've had, at one point I had the sitting governor of the state of Alaska come and visit with my students. And it was actually a really amazing opportunity because he unveiled a new statewide scholarship for high school students that was going public the next day. And he said, you guys get to hear about it before everybody else. That was an awesome opportunity. I've had senators and ambassadors and, all sorts of folks come and visit my students. And I want them to see that the government is people like them and someday will be them, not just other people. I want them to recognize it's not just some abstract concept out there that acts upon them, but that they get to be a part. And particularly because I teach high school seniors, some of them will get to vote for the first time, this semester while they're taking my class. And I want them to recognize that role, recognize how they can be involved, how they can research issues and see through, media bias and things like that to really get at what's important, what's out there, and make up their minds about how they feel about things, and then to be active participants in our democracy. And if they do that, then I feel like I'm doing my job.
Yeah, I like how Lem said that bringing the civics to them. I love that you have people coming into your classroom and visiting. I tried to bring the current events to them as well and make it something that they're interested in and what they would connect with. Something I love to do in my classroom is when my students complain about something, instead of just hearing the complaints, I encourage them to write petitions and stage, if they wanted to, a peaceful protest. I've gotten in a little bit of hot water with a few colleagues about my students writing petitions, but I will not tamper their First Amendment rights. So they have successfully written petitions to our recess monitors, our cafeteria, our principal, our technology teacher, several other people in the building. And sometimes they are able to get what they want. For example, playing a certain game at recess time was really important to my group of students. They complained about it. I suggested they draft a well-written petition, get other students to sign it, present it to the principal, and they were able to negotiate, I guess, compromise. At least 2 days a week, they could enjoy that game or activity. So just like making it real to them. And I think when they recognize, hey, I have an issue, I can solve it if I follow through with these steps, and I can write a petition or I could make my voice heard, is really meaningful for them. So then as they go, and actually I had several students a few years ago, and I'm blanking on what the big issue was, but I knew that there was a petition going around all of Howard County for something to change. And I can't remember the topic right now, but I looked at the petition. Maybe it was on snow days. It was something silly, but I had so many former students on that petition and some that had initiated it as like the core group. And I was so proud of them to see them taking that along with them. So just showing them how they can use their voice and to make change, even at like their small local elementary school level. So I think that's like important for me to pass on to them, how to use that voice and how to make change. Just even at a small scale, that hopefully will eventually lead them to bigger things in the future.
I love that petition thing. Anytime the students are leading like that, that's like the best feeling. Even if you step back and go, "Ooh, do I want my name on this?" You know. But I mentioned the beach cleanup. This year we're kind of having major budget cuts, so we're looking if we have the funding to bus the students to the beach. So I'm like, let's pivot to get the board to come to us and have the students, bring the issues of the school to them. And part of me is like, this is the governing body of determining if we get our buses or not. So letting the students do that. So anytime you can organically find a way for the students to challenge like that, I think is always awesome. And I kind of look at my course in we cover the history of it in the beginning of the year. And then the second part of the year is the inaction piece. So I think it's really important when we're covering the history as many times as I can to try and bring in the diverse perspectives that are not there, right? Like acknowledging our history and giving the students to have a chance to have those meaningful and hard discussions, talking about, like ratifying the Constitution, what groups would have or would not have had they been in the room, and, explaining the room and the groups and giving them, role playing and looking at it that in those various different ways, I think really does have the students engaged. And I feel like when you have them engaged in the history aspect of it and they really learn everything, they're eager to do the action part in the second half of the year. They're building upon that. So I think, using history and using the fun stuff combined really gets them, you get that buy-in the entire school year.
Encouraging students to act and making that connection for them with government by bringing in speakers and organizations, and then talking about those diverse perspectives. That's awesome. And I cannot believe elementary school students are creating petitions. I love it. I did that in 9th grade, and I got some pushback also, but in elementary school, hats off to you, Kristen. I love that idea. Next, we know that as educators, you are continuously learning. So through your efforts in civic education, what have you learned about the best practices for engaging students? And we will start with Lauren and then Lim and follow up with Christian.
So over the years, I've learned that you have to let it be controlled chaos. Like I need to go in with a plan and have guidance of where it's going to go, but truly let the students lead and have those conversations and really play devil's advocate and go both ways on a lot of things. Or when we're doing a project, I have my perfectly typed lists and my groups and my rubrics, and then they start doing it, and we're like, well, we don't need any of that. That's not what they're doing. And just really kind of going with the flow on that. So trusting yourself that your class is going to, rise to the challenge and be able to do it and kind of ride with them. And then just, preparing. I try and think of what are all my scenarios? Like, what's my worst case? What's the craziest thing a kid is going to come in and say? And what am I going to say in return? Or on the opposite end, you go into a room and you think it's going to be a great day, a great lesson, and nobody talks. They all just kind of stare at you and they're not ready to do anything. So then how am I going to get them, going and ready and stuff like that? And then I think on the back end too, you have to be aware of, the community that you're teaching in and the parents, are the parents going to be vocal? Is there going to be pushback? And I think in our district, we really tried to cover all of our bases when we wrote the curriculum. Like we have a disclaimer in there, like we're talking current events, we're talking civics, like you need to be aware of these conversations and we're going to do it in a, partisan, non-biased way, but we want your students engaging and having the tough conversations. So be willing to as well. And luckily we've had a pretty great turnout with that. We've had a lot of supportive parents, a lot of parents saying like they've learned things from their students. So that's always awesome to see.
I would echo what Lauren just said. I actually said to my student government class yesterday, we're going to have a sub on Thursday, and we all know this is organized chaos in here. I mean, those are my words, right? You have to empower students and trust them to run with things. And listening to Christian talk to you about the petition thing, like absolutely, my student leaders in student government write resolutions regularly about things they want to see fixed. And another hat that I wear is I am the co-advisor for our district-wide student advisory board, like district level student government. And they've seen some district policy changes enacted because of things they took a stand on and actions they took. And it's powerful to see that happen. But in order to make it successful, you have to be willing to let go. You have to be willing to let the students lead and let them take it the direction they want to take it. Even if that's not where you would want to take it, you have to have faith that, if you give them the tools, you teach them how to do it, you teach them process, then let them take a stand, let them take a position, rather than, telling them what position to take. Let them decide and run with it. And they may also decide some of them want to go this way and some of them want to go that way. And that's okay too. And that leads to good, opportunities to teach civic discourse and teach, consensus building and other tools that we really want in our society as well. So teach them tools and then let them run with it.
I think I have a little different experience at the elementary school level. Getting them into those conversations is pretty hard. So I feel like for me, it's almost like a song and dance kind of thing. Like I need to make this the most exciting thing you've heard today. And I'm just big and around the whole room and to get their attention, because once it's hooked and I have them, they'll listen. But when a lot of them at the elementary level hear history, they think that like the dinosaurs were around when the pyramids were around. So they don't have that concept of historical time period. So I try to make it as exciting as possible, but also connect with what they know, because they, at the elementary school level, some of them watch the news regularly with their families and some of them have no knowledge. So bringing in current events that they can all relate to, I think is really helpful. Anytime I can put in a YouTube video or like an iCivics game, really like hooks and engages them. But also like what you said, both of you said about teaching in an unbiased way and just giving them both perspectives. Something I like to share with my students is that and I don't give my political opinion, but I participate in government one way and my family might participate another way, and that's okay. And we can have good discussions, and that's kind of letting them know that they might disagree with something that they've heard, but it's okay to have their own opinion and to form that from the information that they're given, and let them know that they have their own opinions and can take that with them as they go on and not influence them. but just meeting them where they are and giving them, like you said, those tools to understand the concepts and eventually apply it as they grow.
Wow, I wish more teachers were here to listen to this conversation, because controlled chaos and letting students lead, it's really hard for teachers. But as veteran teachers, once you realize that, you're like, I wish I would have done this years ago. Oh my gosh, like, wow. So thank you for all lifting that up and just connecting with what students already know, utilizing current events, best practices, absolutely. So we just discussed achievements, but what about the flip side of that? So what challenges have you faced in teaching civics, especially in today's educational political climate, and how have you managed to overcome them? And we can start with Lem and then Christian, and then work our way back to Lauren.
Well, I think I would continue with some of what we were just talking about. I think the challenge is to keep your own politics out of teaching, especially, teaching at the high school government level. I'm talking with students some of whom are going to be able to exercise their right to vote here in 6 weeks or what have you. And, I feel like I have to tread very lightly in some ways to avoid influencing them. And when I teach about political ideology, I always start with this, kind of, I put on my song and dance too, Christian. I start off with I don't care what you think. I don't care what you believe. And I say it like that, but then I follow it up with, really what I mean by that is it doesn't matter what you think. As far as, I'm not going to say, oh, I disagree with you, so I'm going to dock your grade, or I agree with you, so A+. That's not what this is about, right? It's about you exploring the issues, you coming up with your own beliefs, coming up with your own political opinions, deciding where you stand. And I also take time to apologize to them for teachers that they've had who have pushed beliefs on them, who have tried to influence their politics, because that's not our place and isn't an ethical thing to do, but is certainly something that I recognize that is out there. And so sometimes it's just the challenge of breaking through the shell with students who have had to kind of go, oh, well, what I think may not be the most popular thing, so I can't say that because, the teacher's going to come back at me or something, and to kind of create the safe space for them to be able to be who they are, have their opinions, even if their opinions different than the majority in the room. We still want those opinions. We still want the multitude of voices. We want the rich discussion. And so to encourage students and provide them with that safe space to have those dialogues, that's a great challenge, a huge challenge to have to overcome. And then, in the context of all of the partisanship and all of the, everything going on in our society, it becomes even more complicated. And, trying to make sure that everything that we do is done respectfully and not in a way that's going to end up, with the wrong kind of story in the newspaper, or, something being brought up at a school board meeting, or, phone call to the principal, those kinds of things, to really create it in a safe and responsible environment.
Yeah, I agree. Just creating that safe environment is so important. A challenge that I faced, I don't face too many at the elementary school level. We kind of keep it pretty much surface level for a lot of our hot topics that are going on. I had an issue during virtual and learning during the 2020 election year. I had some students and we were talking about democracy and voting, and we did one of those anonymous Google polls where they were voting for Clinton or Trump, and we discussed the results, but not who voted for who, just overall. And I did get a parent email asking for her child to be excused from future lessons if we were going to talk about politics. And I responded respectfully and I said, well, this is part of our curriculum and we are just discussing what's current and what's going on. And the students wanted to share some things. And I did follow up with sending her our full curriculum for social studies. So she was able to see that this is what we were talking about. I'd be happy to meet with her further. I didn't have any other issues, but she did say she didn't want me pushing an agenda like I guess her middle school son's, the older son's teacher or something was. And I assured her that's not what we're doing. We're teaching this is at unbiased way. We're talking about democracy and the voting process, and that's what your child will learn while they're in this class. And that was kind of my only real challenge, other than a few issues with a few students have wanted to discuss current events or write like a current event project. And I went to my principal and asked if they could do a certain topic. And one particular example, he said no, but I allowed her to do the topic because I felt that it wasn't harmful to others, and it was on marriage rights. And I thought that it was age appropriate for her. And she ended up writing the current event, and she did a fantastic job. And I know she's an advocate for people's rights now. I've seen her younger brothers come through, so I was really proud of her for that. And I think in retrospect, my principal now would have said something different if I had asked, but I don't know if that's going to get me in trouble. But Mr. Bruce, if you're watching this, I totally respect you, but it was just a decision for her. I wanted her to write about something she was passionate about and what she wanted to talk about. And we were able to do that. So those are just a few little things. But I think just letting the students kind of guide what they are interested in is so important. And but just making sure you're towing the line so it's not going too far, especially at the elementary school level, but keeping it age appropriate is important.
Yeah, to build off all that, the students will never know how I truly feel politically. And I think that can be a challenge to do that, well, and have the students never figure it out or never, get too impassioned. I think outside of the classroom, I find myself in this election. I have friends and family who, want to have those conversations. And I'm like, I don't, I need to like save that for both sides in the classroom. I kind of have that almost burnt out feeling on the outside. So I think that it can be tiring and trying to play all sides and stay current on everything in this crazy climate that we're in. One of the things that we do, I have a really great team. Anytime we think we have a topic, like a current event coming up that could go sideways, we have a team meeting and we go, what are you telling your classes? This is how I'm going to do it. And we kind of create the resources together. So the messaging across all the 8th grade classes, we're all saying the same thing. We're doing it in our own styles, but everyone's getting it. So when they have those lunchroom conversations, it's not like, well, Ms. Hallgren told us this and so told us that. So it's kind of, they all have the same information, baseline. And then I think one of the biggest challenges for middle school is just getting them willing to have the conversations, getting them willing to participate. That's always a challenge, especially then when you're getting into politics and personal beliefs and things like that. So there's always that fine line of getting them engaged, but not pushing them in any direction or pushing them to the point where they don't feel comfortable sharing. You want that natural, organic conversation to happen as much as possible.
Beautiful information. So having transparency when it comes to parents or community members, relying on your colleagues for support with controversial issues, and just keeping your politics out of it. Great advice, great advice. As award-winning teachers, we know that you have wisdom to impart to other civics teachers. So reflecting on your experience and journey to become an ACETA winner, what advice would you give to other civics teachers striving to make a difference in their classrooms? And we can start with Christian, and then Lynn, and then Lauren.
Some advice I would give to other civics teachers is don't get rid of or don't push the lesson to the side. And I know at the elementary school level that can happen pretty often. Find out a way to bring it into your reading lesson or your writing lesson or something else, a way to get that civics lesson in your classroom. And I think it really important for me is connecting with the students, get to know them, what their background is, where they're from, what their interests are. And once I know more about them, I can kind of guide my instruction to making it more relevant to them and what issues they might care about, and kind of tailoring to what they need and what will help them in the future kind of get to where they're going. And just something I said earlier, encourage them to do something about their complaints. Like, that's my biggest thing is, if a student has a complaint, how do we fix this problem? And who can you talk to about it? And how to make that change that they want to see, and give them those tools to do that, so that they can take that forward with them through their life, and recognizing what their rights are and how they can use them, I think is really important.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. You know, I often think that one of the best things you can do is, in a way, lead by example. You know, I am active politically. Now, I don't tell my students in what direction, and I'm really careful with that. In fact, I've even a couple times surveyed my students to see what they think my political beliefs are, just as a kind of check for myself. And it's kind of funny that they put me all over the spectrum. So I think I'm doing okay, kind of covering the whole band of it. But I think leading by example, in that it's much more impactful for me to be able to talk about contacting legislators about an issue if I can say, you know, I did this last week, last month, whatever, not about tell them about what issue, but, you know, I reached out to so-and-so, I sent them an email, I made a phone call, I visited our capital in Juneau and had these conversations with folks, whatever. You know, again, to really bring that personalization part of it too, like, the people that I talk to are just people, and I talk to people on both sides of the aisle, and they're all good people, right? Recognizing those things, really bringing it home to students that, you know, all these things are real. It's not just some abstract thing out there that happens. It's their life, their community, their society, their responsibility to be involved with it. And so the more that we can do to really open those doors and set examples for that and show them what that looks like, and, you know, describe experiences we've had, I think helps our students see the reality of it, and, you know, have those honest conversations without crossing a line of particular politics, but really, you know, really showing them the opportunities that are out there, and that we're stepping into those opportunities, and that they can too.
That's awesome. I think, building off of that, some of the best classes I've had were ones where I take the lesson plan and just throw that out the window. Not everything needs to be formal. It's when they present those opportunities and you can say, well, this is how you can make the change. All right, let's look up who we're going to contact. Let's, you know, what's the problem? Dig deep, you know, so you can go write that petition or whatever. So I think that, you know, you don't have to be so tied to, and don't tell my supervisor this, but you don't have to be so tied to everything needs to be a perfect lesson plan and we need a perfect do now and closure. The best things that happen when we're having a lesson and a student brings something up and I go, fun fact, and I go off on a tangent, and then you just see their buy-in, and then they're telling me things or asking questions, or they're leading it that way. And again, you revert back to that controlled chaos. Like, we're having a great conversation. They're clearly learning or have learned something, and now they're applying it. So I think, you know, not being so focused on, I have to get through all this material this month, like, just let it kind of flow. And you have a great civics class that way, because the students are going to tell you what they need or what they're interested in, or, you know, what they see for the future, or you can kind of, you know, guide them that way. I think that really, you know, makes civics real for them.
Yeah, so developing relationships with students, leading by example, and just being flexible in your classroom instruction is what I'm hearing you all say. Great. We all have moments as teachers that are memorable to us, both good and bad. So is there a particular moment or experience in your teaching career that stands out as especially meaningful or transformative to you? And we can start with Lim, and then Lauren, and then end with Christian.
Well, there have been so many fantastic moments working with young people. But one that really comes to mind is really kind of a full circle moment for me. So when I was a high school senior, I led a walkout at my high school because the office staff was on strike, and my mom was in that union, and I didn't feel like the school district was treating them very well. So I organized it, and out we went, and 10-degree below zero weather. And we had a walkout, and we made our point, and it drew media attention, and the school district came around within a couple of days, not just because of us, obviously, but it was impactful. And about a year ago, I got to watch my students do that. And I will say I did not have any hand in encouraging it or suggesting it. But I saw them use the skills that they had learned, some of my student government students in particular. I saw them using the skills that they had learned about organizing events and publicizing things and taking action on issues to get fired up and be a part of organizing what ended up being a multi-school walkout across our state after another school district, not mine, but another one of the school districts, removed their student representative position from their school board. And students were unhappy about that. And to see my own students recognize that, jump on that, organize, and take action was very powerful and impactful to me and meaningful, and showed me that my students are paying attention, they're picking up on these things, and they're learning how to take action on issues that they care about. And that's really what's important.
That's really cool. I have two things that stand out. I had a parent who I had the older sister, and then years later had a younger sister. When the younger sister came through, the parent was in for just like a fall conference. And he told me he was an immigrant, and based on what his daughter had learned, the older one who had me, he felt confident enough to go for his citizenship and was able to take the exam and become a citizen. And he said it was his daughter would come home and they would talk about what they learned in my class, and it really helped him. So I thought that was really cool to help teach somebody who I didn't even know I was teaching. And then I have a student who just this year came back to our district, was hired as a teacher, and told me, I did this because I was inspired by your history class. And I was like, that's mind blowing that we're working together and used to sit in my classroom. And I can't believe that I was that one that had the impact on you to become a history teacher.
Oh, I love that. Something, it's kind of full circle for me, and kind of similar to both of you, is a moment this year, this past spring in May, we had our simulated congressional hearings that our fifth graders prepare for a long time for. We have community members come in and act as judges, and they give a testimony and follow-up questions. And this year I had a former student who I taught when he was in fifth grade, and through our simulated congressional hearings, he came back as a judge this year. He's a college student at the University of Maryland. And it was just so cool to see him all grown up and very, very tall in my classroom. And he was talking to my current students about what he learned in fifth grade and how it was such a memorable experience for him. And that was just amazing to see how he's still using it and running into former students and having them tell me that they remember those congressional hearings as part of like a core elementary school memory. And something else that just stands out, we are fortunate to live so close to Washington, D.C. And each year for the past few years, we've been going to down to the mall in D.C. And this past fall, we were able to take a look from the outside. We've been in the Capitol building, but this year, them just kind of making the connection like, oh, that's the building where they write the laws. Like that's where the president is. And just making that connection so close to home, because so many of them, even where we are located, don't go into DC very often and realize how close it is and how many amazing things are happening there. So that's just been really impactful for me to see them like kind of light up and recognize like this is really where all of it happens. And we're so close. For us, it's like in our backyard. So encouraging them to go and see it more often with their families, I think is good for them too. Yeah.
Thank you all for sharing your transformative moments. My heart is smiling right now, listening to you, like, oh my gosh, I love it. But time is winding down. So let's pivot to the future of civics education. This may be our last question, unless we have other questions that are in the chat. But looking ahead, what are some emerging trends or changes in civics education that you're excited about or you think teachers should be aware of? And we can go with Lauren, Lem, and then Christian.
I think this generation of students, Gen Alpha, is going to be so interesting to teach over the next few years because they have the world at their fingertips, literally. They're on social media and using it to engage with each other and for change. Major world events are happening and it's being live streamed to them at all times. So it's just so available to them. And that's going to have an impact. I'm a generation who was a freshman in high school and 9/11 happened and they put the TVs on and we watched that live and that had such an impact. You know, I'm a history teacher now. So I think that just it's going to change the way we do things. I'm already seeing, you know, attention span is not there. So how are we doing those songs and dances that we've all mentioned tonight and keeping them engaged in a world that is so engaging and constantly changing? And I think that's exciting. It's going to, you know, things that worked 5 years ago are not going to work in the next 5 years. And that's great for us, right? Because I think we're going to keep finding new ways to do things. We're going to find new conversations and it's going to, you know, keep changing in a good way, I hope.
Yeah, I definitely concur. And the amount of information they have access to and the, you know, the way that in some ways students are more up to date and, you know, keeping up with the pulse of what's going on than, you know, any of us can be with traditional media or other things like that is fascinating. I think also that it has led to a certain bit of culture amongst young people of activism and wanting to do something more to change the world around them. And I'm really excited to see how that plays out and how some of these new technologies can really empower positive change in the world. On the flip side, I think something that we have to be constantly aware of is the, you know, echo chambers of social media and how it's easy to end up with just a one-sided view. And so I think civic education continues to be extremely relevant and important in helping students open their eyes to the spectrum of ideas out there and to considering different viewpoints and finding ways to engage in civic discourse and not, you know, harmful, hateful speech and things like that. And really, you know, exploring those aspects of civics and society and politics, I think is going to continue to be a key part of everything that we do.
Yeah, I agree with the social media piece for students, not too much yet at the elementary school level, but especially for the older students. Like just being able to, like you said, live stream what's going on, encouraging them to watch, like this is what's really happening on the ground right now in real time, is something new for this generation to experience. I also really like with the social media piece, the digital activism, like for recently, I think last year we had a lot of college protests occurring and they were able to mobilize so quickly because of social media and that able to connect and change. And they're also able to connect like globally. So what's going on in another country, they can protest here and make changes and pressure companies or their colleges or something to make change. Even if it's not personally affecting them, they recognize it's happening in another country and they can make change here. And I really think being able to see what's going on in the world is changing like the whole way we try. I don't know how to word it, but it's so inspiring to see them caring about issues that they know don't affect them directly, but they know are affecting people in other countries and they want to make it better for them. Something I worry about though with the social media piece is like obviously AI and like deep fakes, and we teach them to look at news and make sure it is a reliable source and how to check that. But I think that's going to be tricky as AI gets better and things are put out that look like they're real and that person said it. So that's going to be harder to decipher what's reliable and what's not as we go through. So that's something I'm a little nervous about. I love AI. I think it's going to be amazing in certain ways, but for students and maybe who haven't fully developed that full frontal cortex yet, and those decision making, like how will they know what's real and what's not? So that's something I'm a little afraid of, but I do love it overall, the technology piece and the connection from students all over the world, and quick activism, I think is going to change a lot of things.
Yes, you all raised some great options about the different ways that, or the different trends that we are seeing in civics education. Thank you for that. We have one question, so I'm going to read it, and Lem, Lauren, Christian, any of you can reply, and then I'm going to turn it back over to Emily or Donna. But from Michael Lohr, what are your thoughts about depoliticizing information literacy?
Okay, I'll take a stab at it. You know, I think that we want to teach students how to evaluate information, how to, you know, consider bias and things like that. But first of all, in order to do that, you have to look at sources that have bias. And you also have to, I think, acknowledge that every source has its biases. And so I'm not sure that it's completely possible to depoliticize really anything. More so, I think it's important to provide the variety of political views, the variety of the, you know, the whole spectrum, and really open the opportunity for students to explore all different, you know, angles of the political spectrum, angles of information, and then be able to kind of make some decisions about what they accept as fact or truth, what they don't, and really just kind of, you know, learning that critical thinking evaluative process, I think is the most important thing.
Yeah, I kind of agree. And I think I immediately thought of that infographic we've probably all seen that has like the news from one end to the other. And for the elementary school students, I kind of just encourage them like, hey, if you're watching Fox News, also watch CNN and watch a little bit of both, and then come to your own like opinion on it, or take one far side on each one, and then kind of take the facts and say, I can see what both sides are saying. How can I form my own opinion on it? So encouraging them to check out all kinds of news sources from across the spectrum, I think will help them to kind of like figure out where they fit along that line. Yeah.
Yeah, I think building off of that, using the media bias chart where you can click in and everything like that, using that, you know, having them read a piece or use a piece of information, and then how could this side use it? How could this side use it? You know, what could you say? How could somebody be upset by it? You know, making them see it from both sides, and coming up with the arguments for both sides, I think is one way to do it. I don't think in middle school level, they necessarily will pick up on some things, you know, the sources right away, or that it's leaning one way or the other. So I think by, you know, pointing it out to them and then having them branch from there is a good way to do it. You know, kind of if they're not picking up on it, do that part and then see where they go from there with that.
Okay, well, thank you so much. This has been such a great discussion. And Dr. Shelina Warren, thank you so much for being our moderator this evening. And a further congratulations to our 3 winners this year, Lem, Lauren, and Christian. It's really been wonderful hearing all of your insights, and it's just wonderful to hear how you both have been inspired and are inspiring. So it's been a really great honor to be with you for the last hour. And I'd like to just wrap up and let folks know that we will have further opportunity to hear from our ACETA winners at the upcoming National Council for the Social Studies in Boston, coming up in November. And we'd also like to remind everyone that the next ACETA application window will open November 21st. So we look forward to seeing a bunch of amazing applications come through for our award winners for 2025. So once again, thank you so much for being here this evening. And Donna, did you want to add anything?
No, just congratulations once again. Thanks to everyone who was here tonight to honor these winners. And it's just the beginning of your victory tour. So thanks for kicking off Constitution Day and a great school year with us.
Thank you all so much. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Congratulations again. Take care.